The house was oppressively quiet after the funeral, each corner laden with memories of a life that had faded away. I sat alone at the dining table, gazing at a half-drunk cup of coffee, feeling more adrift than I ever thought possible. The burden of solitude enveloped me like a dense, unyielding mist. Just as I feared the night would consume me entirely, a gentle knock came at the door. Wary and puzzled, I opened it to find my son's best friend standing there, his eyes brimming with an emotion I couldn't yet grasp, something that would alter everything. The sight of him sent an odd shiver through me. Jason, my son's closest companion, appeared transformed in the glow of the porch light. Gone was the gangly teenager who once rummaged through our fridge and dozed off in the living room after gaming marathons. Now he stood tall, broad-shouldered, his face bearing the gravity of a man who had encountered the world and borne its weight. For a moment neither of us spoke, the night air thick with unspoken words. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said at last, his voice deeper, more anchored than I recalled. I nodded, words eluding me. Grief had stripped me of so much: my husband, my joy, my sense of place, and now even my voice. Jason shifted, clutching a small container. "I brought you something," he said, extending it toward me, a simple homemade casserole. The gesture was modest, yet so profound it broke the brittle barrier I'd erected within. "Thank you," I whispered, stepping aside to let him in. The house seemed to absorb him instantly, as if ravenous for life and sound. He placed the casserole on the kitchen counter and turned to me. Concern etched his face. "How are you holding up?" he asked softly, his gaze probing mine in a way that made me feel truly seen for the first time in weeks. I offered a tight, mirthless smile. "Surviving," I said, my voice breaking. Jason paused, then did something unexpected. He reached out and touched my hand, not fleetingly but in a steady, grounding way that sent a tremor through my chest. I wanted to pull back, to retreat into my shell of sorrow, but something within me held fast. I craved the connection, needed someone to remind me I was still alive. "Do you want me to stay for a bit?" he asked, almost timidly, as if wary of crossing a line. I glanced around the empty house at the photo frames still lining the walls and felt the crushing silence bear down again. "Yes," I said before I could overthink it. "Please." We moved to the living room, a space steeped in both comfort and sorrow. Jason perched on the edge of the couch while I curled up on the opposite end, draping a throw blanket over my lap. For a few moments we sat in silence, the only sounds the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old house settling. It was odd how natural it felt to have him there, like a link between the life I'd lost and the uncertain future ahead. We began talking, first about trivial things like his new job and how the neighborhood had shifted while he was away at college. Then, slowly, the conversation ventured into deeper territory. He asked about my husband, about what I missed most. The question was simple, but it cracked something open inside me. I found myself sharing things I'd kept locked away, fearing they'd shatter me. I spoke of late-night laughter, quiet mornings, and wordless glances that conveyed everything. Jason listened without interrupting, without trying to mend anything. He simply listened, his focus so complete it made my chest ache. When I ran out of words, he leaned forward and said, "You're allowed to miss him and still need someone." The raw truth of his words forced me to close my eyes to steady myself. When I opened them, he was closer, his face shadowed, but his eyes radiant. There was no pity in his gaze, only understanding, only a quiet offer of solace. For a moment, I felt poised on the brink of something perilous yet beautiful, something that could either mend or break me further. My heart pounded, uncertain yet somehow willing. It had been so long since anyone looked at me like that, as if I was desired, not pitied. My breath caught, the air between us electric. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I let myself wonder. What if moving forward didn't mean forgetting? What if it meant discovering something new, something tender and healing amid the wreckage? Jason must have seen the shift in my eyes because he smiled. a slow, hesitant smile carrying countless unspoken promises. My pulse quickened. I didn't know where the night was leading, but for once I wasn't afraid. I was alive, ready to feel again. Jason shifted, his knee grazing mine, and the incidental contact made my breath hitch. It would have been easy to pull away, to restore distance and pretend the moment hadn't happened. But I didn't. I stayed, feeling the warmth where his skin met mine, letting it seep into the cold, hollow spaces within. His eyes searched mine, offering every chance to retreat, every opportunity to say no. But I remained, my heart pounding louder than any words I could have spoken. Without thinking, I reached out and touched his hand, my fingers lightly curling around his. His hand was warm, steady, slightly rough, a stark contrast to the trembling vulnerability inside me. He turned his palm upward, lacing his fingers with mine, the gesture so simple yet so intimate it tightened my throat with emotion. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be touched like this. Not out of duty, but out of genuine care. Jason shifted closer, bridging the remaining distance. His hand rose slowly, hesitantly, to tuck a stray strand of hair behind my ear. His fingertips barely brushed my skin, yet it sent a shiver down my spine. For a long moment, he simply looked at me, his gaze heavy with meaning. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, his voice tinged with something close to awe. No one had said that to me in years, not with such raw sincerity. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them away, refusing to let them fall. Instead, I leaned into his touch, letting his hand cradle my cheek. The world beyond vanished, the grief, the loneliness, the endless stream of hollow condolences, until there was only this moment. Only him and me, and the aching possibility between us. He moved closer, his breath warm against my lips. There was a pause, a lingering hesitation, as if offering one final chance to pull back. But I didn't want it. I closed the distance, pressing my lips softly against his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if we both feared the other might retreat. But when I didn't, when I tilted my head to deepen the connection, he responded with a passion that made my heart flutter wildly. His arms encircled me, pulling me close, and for the first time in so long I felt truly deeply held. The kiss grew more urgent, hungrier, as if we were both reclaiming lost time. My hand slid up his chest, feeling the strength beneath his shirt, the solid reality of him anchoring me in a way I hadn't known I needed. He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, searching for any hint of regret. But all he'd find was longing, a deep, undeniable need to feel alive, to be wanted, to be seen. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice low and rough. I nodded, unable to speak, and that was all the permission he needed. He stood, gently pulling me to my feet, and led me toward the staircase. Each step was heavy with anticipation, every glance between us thick with unspoken promises. By the time we reached my bedroom, my hands trembled, not with fear, but with the dizzying thrill of what was to come. Jason was careful, almost reverent, as he helped me out of my cardigan, his fingers grazing my skin and leaving trails of fire. He kissed the hollow of my throat, the curve of my shoulder, taking his time as if savoring every inch of me. I reciprocated, running my hands through his hair, along the strong line of his back, feeling his muscles tense and relax under my touch. When he laid me down on the bed, it was with a tenderness that made my heart ache. He hovered over me, his eyes drinking me in, as if memorizing every detail. "You're incredible," he murmured, the wonder in his voice making me believe it, if only for tonight. Our clothes fell away slowly, unhurriedly, each piece shed like a release of old pain, old lives. When he touched me, it wasn't with the clumsy eagerness of youth, but with a deep, aching care that left no part of me unseen or unloved. Every kiss, every caress, every whispered word was a balm to wounds I'd carried in silence. The physical connection was electric, but the emotional intimacy undid me, the way he held my gaze, never looking away, the way he made me feel cherished, not broken. Our bodies moved together in a timeless rhythm, a slow, sensual dance that built until it consumed us. When I cried out his name, it wasn't just release. It was rebirth, a reclaiming of a part of myself I'd thought lost forever. Afterward, we lay tangled together, our breaths slowing, the room filled with a soft golden silence. Jason traced lazy, tender patterns along my arm, as if reluctant to let go. I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For once, the oppressive weight of loneliness didn't crush me. I felt warm, grounded, held. He pressed a kiss to my head and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." I closed my eyes, letting the truth of those words wash over me. In one night, Jason had shown me that love could take many forms, that healing, though messy and complex, was still possible. I'd spent so long mourning what was lost that I'd forgotten how to hope for what could be found. In his arms, I began to believe life could still hold unexpected beauty, even after such sorrow. And maybe Hiroshima was not just about healing old wounds. It was about building something new, something neither of us had dared to dream of, but both of us needed more than we'd ever known. How could I have foreseen that the young man who assisted me with the coffee maker would enter my home, only for me to discover I'd left my toys and some deeply personal garments strewn across the couch, much less that everything would shift profoundly from that instant. I was solitary. Yet, when I ventured to purchase that coffee maker thanks to the fellow at the shop, I find myself no longer alone today. Who could have anticipated that a novice youth would cross my path and steer events in such an astonishing direction? Allow me to recount it all from the start. I'm 60, divorced for 15 years, and have lived alone. Naturally, I had my private moments and personal belongings, items reserved solely for me. Indeed, I used them so frequently that I barely noticed when I carelessly left them in plain view in the heart of the living room. Perhaps it was merely habit, or perhaps it was my way of easing the ache of solitude. Regardless, that morning seemed utterly ordinary. My only plan was to buy a coffee maker and proceed with my day. But that young man, Jake, altered everything when he offered his help. The moment I opened the door and allowed him to step inside with the box, I had no inkling that a routine day was about to become extraordinary. Jake was 23, vibrant, warm, and brimming with energy. As he entered my home, coffee maker in hand, his gaze roamed across every nook of the room. That's when his eyes fell upon something. My toys and those intimate articles of clothing I'd left on the couch. I was so accustomed to their presence that I hadn't even registered them. To me, they seemed the most mundane part of the house. Jake gave a faint smile as he moved toward the living room and remarked, "You live alone, don't you?" There was a mischievous curiosity in his expression. My cheeks flushed crimson. The moment was so abrupt and mortifying that I was at a loss for how to respond. Someone was only meant to come and set up the coffee maker. After all, I didn't share these private facets of my life with anyone. My solitude was mine alone, and I never meant to expose it to another. "Jake, please, let's act as if you saw nothing," I said, my voice quivering slightly. It felt as though everything I held dear had unraveled in an instant. Jake looked at me and smiled. "As you wish," he replied. "But, you know, these things aren't exactly easy to ignore. They sort of command attention just like you do." His words left me even more flustered. I averted my gaze and mumbled, "Jake, please don't forget to follow and enable notifications for more tales like this. I'm certain you'll feel compelled to leave a comment after hearing this one. Let's discuss it below. I'm eager to hear your thoughts." But with his characteristic warmth and sincerity, he pressed on. "It's entirely natural to have such things when you live alone," he said, his eyes now glinting with a different kind of light. "We all have our desires, you know, but sometimes these things just aren't enough, are they?" I could sense the subtle weight in his words at the end. It was as though he was reaching out to me, connecting in a way that felt both daring and tender. Our eyes met for a few seconds, and in that moment, something began to kindle between us. A pull, an unspoken attraction, a quiet intensity. I could feel Jake's warm gaze on me, and with every passing second we drew closer. Every word he spoke seemed to touch my soul. And that's when I realized what I was feeling was distinct. Jake said, "I noticed it the first time you came to get the coffee maker." A strange spark in his eyes. "You gave me a feeling I've never experienced before." I paused before responding. What could I even say? My emotions were in disarray, but resisting this pull felt nearly impossible. "You did the same for me," I said with a small smile. "Otherwise, I'd have never accepted your offer to help and let you into my home." I said that, but deep down I knew I felt something more profound. Jake had slipped under my skin somehow. His presence, his demeanor, his way of speaking, so relaxed, so captivating. It was growing harder to keep my eyes from revealing my feelings. There was a brief silence before I finally said, "I've been in these jeans and this shirt all day. They're stifling me," attempting to ease the tension. "I'm going to change into something more comfortable. Make yourself at home." Jake's gaze lingered on me. I tried to look away, even momentarily, but I couldn't. I felt so drawn to him, the distance between us shrinking by the second. Upstairs, I slipped into a sleek, form-fitting spaghetti-strap dress. I touched up my makeup lightly and headed to the kitchen. But as I descended, I noticed Jake standing by the living room door. His eyes, whether deliberately or not, were fixed on me. For a moment I hesitated, letting my thoughts run wild. "All right," I thought to myself. "Young man, your intentions are quite clear. You're like striking the jackpot for me, so let's go with it." I thought that, then pretended not to notice his stare and stepped toward him. "Jake," I said in a playful tone, "are you single? Got a girlfriend? Or do you spend your nights alone?" As I looked at him, a spark ignited within me. We were so close now that every word, every gesture, every glance seemed to carry deeper meaning. When I saw the excitement and shy curiosity in his eyes, a smile spread across my face. "If you finish setting up the coffee maker, how about we make some coffee?" I said, scarcely noticing the slight tremor in my voice. "And let's talk. You can tell me all about yourself." As I moved closer, I felt a warmth building inside me. Every little thing about him was pulling me in. Jake sat down on a chair, but he kept shifting, struggling to get comfortable. I, meanwhile, took another step and pulled my chair right beside his. As I settled into it, my skirt rode up just slightly, a few centimeters, but I was fully aware of it. Jake's eyes traveled upward, stopping just shy of meeting mine. I could feel his attentiveness, his genuineness. I glanced at him, trying to gauge this new closeness, and smiled. Crossing my legs casually, I rested an arm on the back of my chair. "Did you get impatient waiting for this?" I teased, injecting a playful note into the moment. But the tension between us continued to build quietly. Jake, slightly flustered but holding my gaze, asked, "How old are you?" His voice wavered between surprise and admiration. "I thought you were 50, he said. A sparkle lit up in my eyes. Did he really think I was 50? That was intriguing and oddly flattering. I couldn't help but smile. "Do you prefer 50-year-olds?" I teased, raising an eyebrow as I studied him. Each word, each moment between us drew us closer, fueled by the heat of the moment, the look of surprise in his eyes. He seemed utterly captivated by me. "No, that's not what I meant," he said, a touch shyly. "You look so young and beautiful." His words echoed in my mind. A warmth spread through me, but I also felt a twinge of unease. Being this close now, taking another step, felt daunting. There was a moment of silence between us. I took a deep breath and asked, "Do you have a girlfriend? Are you alone? How do you spend your nights alone?" These were questions I was both eager and nervous to hear answered. Jake lowered his voice, his eyes locking onto mine. "I'm alone," he said. In that moment, I truly believed he was alone, but it felt like a loneliness he didn't truly desire. We gazed at each other for a while, and I knew he could sense the intensity in my stare. Something shifted within me as I waited. My feelings began to crystallize swiftly, and I knew I had to act. That's not how tonight's going to go, I said, my voice firmer, more resolute. My eyes returned to him, and every word I spoke carried weight. I knew in that moment everything was about to change. Jake, come, I said, my voice lower than usual but undeniably inviting. With my eyes, I gestured toward the bedroom and turned without hesitation, certain he would follow. I heard his footsteps behind me, his breathing slightly quicker now. When we entered the bedroom, Jake paused near the door. His shoulders were slightly tense, but his expression was focused, expectant. I turned to face him, and on his face I saw a blend of hesitation and excitement. "Jake, are you ready?" I asked, my tone calm and steady. I stepped closer and added with a small smile, "I've got experience, as you can tell. Relax. No need to be nervous." I placed my hand gently on his shoulder as I approached. Even that small touch seemed to ease some of his tension, but it also heightened the excitement within him. In that moment, Jake's youthful vigor met the confidence and decisiveness I'd honed over the years. I slowly slid the straps of my dress off my shoulders. The fabric grazed my skin as it fell to the floor. I felt Jake's eyes on me, filled with a mix of awe, curiosity, and desire. Something stirred within me, but my expression remained composed. I moved closer to him, the silence between us almost forging a connection. My fingertips lightly brushed his cheek, and then I waited for him to make his move. Jake hesitated for a second, but finally he leaned toward me. I could sense the determination and excitement in his gaze. His hands slowly settled on my waist, and his face drew nearer until his lips met mine. His kiss carried the boldness of youth and a trace of inexperience. But that innocence only drew me in further. I pulled back slowly and made my way toward the bed, sinking onto it with deliberate, unhurried movements. The cool surface against my skin sent a shiver through me, heightening the anticipation within. I looked at Jake. He was still standing, uncertain of his next step. "Jake, come here," I said, my voice soft but beckoning. I ran my fingers across the bed, indicating the empty space beside me. "Lie down. There's nothing to fear." Jake slowly approached and carefully lay beside me. It was as if we were both holding our breath, the air in the room growing heavier by the second. I turned to him, placed my hand gently on his chest, and asked softly, "Have you ever thought about this moment? Imagined it, Jake?" Jake kept his eyes on me, unwavering. "More than just imagined it," he said, his voice low and slightly unsteady. "But I never thought it could actually happen." In that moment, all our doubts were swept aside. We were connecting not just physically, but emotionally too. Neither of us knew where this would lead. But one thing was certain. The excitement I felt with Jake was something I'd been yearning for. Lying beside him, the thrill within me transformed into a surge of courage. I sat up slightly at the edge of the bed, fixing my gaze on Jake as I stood before him, leaning slightly toward him from the head of the bed, my eyes locked with his, capturing the blend of surprise and anticipation in his expression. "Jake," I said, my voice soft but resolute, "tonight, neither of us is alone." Jake swallowed hard, never breaking eye contact. His silence conveyed that he understood the weight of my words. His hands gripped the edge of the bed tightly, but his eyes had grown bolder. Slowly, I leaned toward his face, gently holding his cheeks with my hands. "Let's just live this moment tonight," I whispered, bringing my lips closer to his. "Don't question anything. Don't fear anything." Jake's breathing quickened, but he didn't pull away, not even for a moment. In that instant, we were both escaping our loneliness, finding solace in each other's presence. Jake's breathing had intensified. His eyes seemed to absorb every detail of the moment, as if he wanted to imprint it in his memory. He hesitated briefly, then lifted his hands to my waist with a mix of boldness and uncertainty. That initial hesitancy melted into an intense desire. I couldn't control my own breathing either, but I felt the gravity of the moment deep within me. "Jake," I whispered as I gently caressed his face with my hands. "This feeling is so overwhelming, and it's beautiful." Jake didn't look away, replying in a voice that was deep yet trembling with warmth. I feel the same. But isn't this all happening so fast? This feeling I have, it's so strong and so beautiful. You can probably guess I've never done anything like this before. A smile spread across my face. I leaned in closer and placed a soft kiss on his forehead. Jake, sometimes life is better when you don't overthink. Just feel the moment and never stop, I said with a reassuring tone. Jake paused for a moment but then slid his hands slowly from my waist upward, pulling me closer as our breaths mingled and the space between us vanished. I knew this moment could be a turning point in our lives. It didn't take long, and Jake, breathless and fully surrendering, let himself go just as I'd encouraged. He didn't hold back, and it felt extraordinary. As I lay beside him afterward, he looked so content, as if he'd finally released all his tension. Jake's strong arms were wrapped tightly around me, holding me close. My head rested on his chest, where I could hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. The rhythmic sound was both calming and strangely exhilarating. Without realizing it, my fingers were gently tracing patterns across his chest. Jake took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Brittany, this feeling I'm experiencing right now. I've never felt so calm and at peace before." His voice was a blend of honesty and surprise. I smiled but didn't meet his gaze, still resting my head on his chest. "Really?" I murmured. "Yeah, really," he continued, gently sliding one of his hands to my back, pulling me closer. All my life I've been chasing something. I never thought I'd pause to savor a moment like this. But now, being here with you, it makes everything feel worthwhile. His words warmed me from the inside out. While I lay there, listening to the steady rhythm of his breaths, I replied, "Jake, just being with you makes me feel something I haven't felt in so long. Special." Jake ran his fingers through my hair, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I guess we've given each other exactly what we needed," he said thoughtfully. I lifted my head slightly to look at him. The honesty and relief on his face said it all. "Then let's just leave it like this," I said. "Let's soak up this moment." Jake nodded slowly, agreeing without a word. We stayed there, entwined, letting the warmth of the moment envelop us. Outside, the quiet and dim light felt as though they existed solely for us. Resting my head back on Jake's chest, I closed my eyes and let the serene moment wash over me. That's when a thought crept into my mind. I began imagining asking him to stay here with me, to transform this house, these quiet corners, and lonely nights into something vibrant with his presence. The idea of weaving him into my world made everything seem brighter, fuller. Of course, I didn't know where that would lead us. What kind of thrilling days or deeper connections lay ahead? But one thing I knew for certain. Our story wasn't concluding here. This was merely the beginning. So, stay tuned. If you've followed this far, I know my story must have resonated with you. There's so much more to share and you won't want to miss it. Hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and don't forget to drop a comment about this story. I'm eager to hear what you think. So let's chat in the comments. Your support means everything to me.